Hello.
Hi, how are you?
How are you? We are good. It's really nice to have you again.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. It's becoming quite a tradition.
Yes, I think. So I will introduce our moderator for today. It's Ani,
Hi,
and
Annie.
Ani
Hi.
will. Oke, silakan Ani boleh mau ngobrol dulu.
Yes, hi Ruth. This is also my first Halloween because I also found out recently that apparently it's like a tradition for them to have you every Halloween too. So it's
I,
like quite
yeah,
exciting
I've
for
done it every Halloween for a few years now, so it's been really fun.
us. Because like yeah, it's also always fun because I've also become a moderator recently for them too for another event. So we're always working out different timelines because I live in Melbourne, so it's yeah.
Oh wow. Okay, so is this the middle of the night for you?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's like it's all right. I'm on annual leave, so I'm worried.
Okay, at least you get to have a lie-in tomorrow.
I'm gonna have a long weekend, so I'm pretty
Good.
happy.
Good. Okay, I'm glad. And my Halloween decorations, I have my pumpkin. You can't really see my
Oh,
skull. It's rather a long way away, but and my severed arm.
I saw the severed arm. I was like, is that an arm?
Yeah. It's come through a bit small. Last time I had like some kind of cobwebby decorations, but I couldn't find those this year. I'm not sure what I did with them, so we have to have
It's
ordinary ones this time.
it's probably somewhere in the attic. It's always
It
somewhere in the
probably
attic.
is. Yeah.
Next
Although
next to the yeah, next to the Christmas bubble.
yeah, no, probably. Some of my decorations got damaged last year as well, and I had to throw them away, so it could have been
Oh
there. But
no.
anyway, doesn't matter.
Yes, could always get some more. Especially with those webs. Quite easy. So yeah, I've already purchased this one already. The it
Oh,
girl.
fantastic!
Yes. But it is quite interesting as well, because again, as you notice from the book, I usually read fantasy and most time I watch like movies like or series like this. So it is quite a different thing for me, but I quite enjoyed it. I like thoroughly. So that's
Oh,
why I'm
thank
quite excited with this.
well, hopefully, The Woman in Cabin 10 is going to be on Netflix
Ooh, that
next
would be
year.
good.
So
Ooh,
yeah,
that'd
so
be good.
that's fun.
I'm super excited for it. I mean, we're already in November, so not that long.
Yeah, I've got a feeling it's going to be the end of next year, but we'll see.
Yes, but because we don't really have seen that much thriller mystery like in that type of way. Because it's always being picked up recently. It's a lot of romance and sci-fi. So I'm hoping to see more of the thriller genre to kick off, like the mystery one, which and hopefully they continue on the season or something instead
Fingers
of
crossed.
canceling.
Yeah, it's
Fingers
never
crossed.
certain with Netflix, is it?
Well, that's probably also a good thing to say if you wanna also promote that, like a little snippet of to our readers later. Like, ooh,
Sure,
woman
yeah, I
cabin
can
10.
talk about it. There's not a whole lot I can say, but I can talk about the fact that it is happening. So,
They're probably gonna be super excited, especially with all like people on the Netflix. It's like, ooh. But yeah, how is the weather over there? Because I know it's autumn for you.
yeah, it's okay. It's autumn. It's a bit grey. It's a bit rainy. It's fine. It's nothing special. So,
Because we're the complete opposite. Ours is spring.
of course, yeah, you're about to go
Yes,
into summer, aren't you?
yes,
Yeah.
the
So,
southern
how
hemisphere.
has it started getting hot yet, or is it still quite?
Well, because it's in Melbourne, so we're quite down south, and our weather is a bit erratic. So one like within a day, you could have like four seasons. Like it would be sunny and hot during the day, and then cold and like chill at night. So it's quite a whack.
Okay, so you
Not
kind of
like
get everything in one day.
yeah, it's quite famous. Like especially if you want to travel across here. I'm just preparing you.
Good to know. Um, just so I know how it's going to work with the interview,
Mhm.
are we just talking in English, or are you going to translate, or how do you want me to pause after I speak, or how does it work?
Last time we've done it fully in English. So I think we've got some I think someone's gonna monitor the chat too. If there's questions being raised in Indonesian as well, they're gonna help convey it, translate it to Indonesian. But
Perfect.
at the end, if we have some spare time, we're gonna open the chat. If someone's gonna ask question, they can put it in the chat either in Indonesian or English. And I think we've discussed this before. If someone willing to open their mic and talk to you directly, whether it's in Indonesian or English, we'll be okay because I can help translate too.
Perfect. Okay, that sounds great. And how long is it running for? Is it 1 hour? Just so I know, my kids are downstairs. So
Yes, it will be 1 hour.
perfect. Okay, I'll tell because I've told them they're not allowed to disturb me, but it's good if I can say like, after this we're okay.
And
What
since
are the
in
things?
the Zoom they will have a CC caption, I will turn on the captions so the audience, at least if they have to make sure that they are starting the conversation, they will read the caption.
Sure. Sounds like a good idea.
1 minute to 8, I think we will have to make the audience ini ya,
I'll admit all the
admit
audience.
all. Okay. Silakan Nacan, please Nacan.
Okay, it's joining.
This is always like the dreadful, like, the jitters because everyone's starting.
Okay, it's 8 p.m. now. Jadi aku bukan ya. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for having us here in the Halloween with Ruth Ware again, 3 consecutive years. Aren't we all, Ruth? How are you today?
I'm very well. Happy Halloween to you.
Happy Halloween. Hope you are gonna be okay in everything you want. And today we will having Annie, who will moderating this session until 1 hour ahead. So before yeah, everything get lost, maybe everything and get tired, maybe. So Annie, please the forum is yours. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Once again, I'm gonna do an introduction. Hi, everyone. We are grateful to have you here with us because it's a Halloween night. I know everyone's probably wants to do something different, but we're here to talk about books, which what we love. My name is Annie. I will be your moderator for the evening. We are here joined by our special guest and author. Well, please welcome New York Times Globe and Toronto Mail best-selling author Ruth Ware. So yes, I already spoken with you, Ruth, just before we started that I've become aware that this is nearly become a tradition, and I'm hoping that we're gonna keep it going for the next few years too. We're just gonna be spending this next hour just to talk about your book. And so please everyone get comfortable, get on your chair, put on some nice tea or something, and also sit back and get active in the chat because apparently we're gonna have 3 winners that they're gonna get free books. They can choose any Ruth Ware books by Nora Publishing. Isn't that exciting?
Fantastic prize.
Yeah, it is. I was like, wow, that is also quite nice.
That's really awesome.
Yeah. An introduction you would like to say to the audience today?
Oh, just that I am so happy to be, well, I was going to say to be back in Indonesia for Halloween, but sadly I'm not actually in Indonesia I'm in the UK, which is quite grey, quite rainy. I guess kind of spooky season. It's the right time of year for Halloween. But
Yes.
yeah, it's really lovely to be back with Nora. People who joined last year will remember I had very cool cobweb decorations, but I seem to have lost those. So we have a severed arm, and a skull, which is quite difficult to see, and my little pumpkin at the back.
Yes, we have you have a third hand handy just in case you need to read something.
Exactly. If I need to, I can use.
That is quite funny. Because yeah, that was just like the one thing. It's like I'm trying to figure out, is that an arm, like a severed
It
arm?
is an arm. It's not a real arm. Don't worry. You know, when people say in meetings, put your hand up, I can be like, hi. I have a question.
I mean, you are a mystery, thriller. Well, because you sometimes, people say like, oh, how did they come up with this theory? So it's always like, and then we see in severed arm. I mean, I think that's a good way to start Halloween night, I guess.
Everybody needs a severed arm. Absolutely.
And a skull, and it's a skull decoration, I'd
The
say.
skull is actually very small. It's a very tiny little skull. So and I dropped it, so it's slightly dented at the
I'd say it's pretty realistic, because sometimes that's how
it's pretty
people,
cool.
yes.
I'm going to
So
put it
yeah,
outside my house later this evening for the trick-or-treaters. So yeah.
oh, that's quite nice.
Because it's lunchtime here in the UK, whereas I know that you are middle of the night, so you're really spooky.
Yes, it's the very, very spooky night. It's like when the moon's already like high up. So I think yes, I think this is also a perfect time to start the discussion of the book.
Okay, I'm
So
ready to be thrilled.
it's all right, I'll go easy. We'll start with the inspiration behind the book. What influenced you to write this?
So we're talking about the It Girl today, is that right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I know I have to remember which books are out
Oh
in
yes,
which language
sorry. Yes,
at any
I
one
should
time.
reiterate that.
It's
I know you have like
um
so many books.
and they all get translated at slightly different points. So I was like, "Are Nora onto 0 Days yet?" No, they are the It
No.
Girl. Yeah, so the It Girl is about my character Hannah, who is a bookseller. So she works in this gorgeous imaginary bookshop in Edinburgh. She's married to her college sweetheart, Will. They are expecting their first baby. So everything is kind of, on the face of it, it's pretty idyllic. But one day she's reading the newspaper and she reads an announcement that this guy who killed her roommate at college died in prison.
Yes.
And he was convicted largely on Hannah's evidence. So there was her roommate was murdered, she was strangled. The college porter, kind of a security guy, was suspected, and Hannah gave evidence against him. And when a reporter comes sniffing around and asking questions about the case, she has to face up to the fact that it's possible she made a mistake and that this guy did not kill her roommate April, in which case not only did she sentence an innocent man to die in prison, it also means that April's real killer is still out in the world. And she has to decide what she wants to do about this. And because of the kind of person Hannah is, she decides that she has to find out the truth. She has to find out if she did make a mistake and whether April's killer is still waiting to be brought to justice. So the inspiration for this book, well, it came from a bunch of places, really. Partly the fact that we were just coming out of lockdown and I hadn't been able to travel anywhere for ages. Two of my favourite cities are Oxford and Edinburgh, which are the two cities in the book.
In the book.
Edinburgh in Scotland is where Hannah lives in the present day. Oxford is where she went to university, which, is just an incredibly beautiful city.
Yes.
But a big part of the inspiration was the fact that I did jury duty here in the UK.
Oh,
So the way it works in the UK is you get called up to serve on a jury. You don't know anything about the case. You turn up at the court and you just get allocated to a case and you have to serve. You have no option about it, really.
yeah.
And the case I was asked to be on a jury for was not particularly serious one. But I was surprised how heavy the responsibility felt for me. I lost sleep over it. I took it really seriously. And I think all of the other people on the jury did as well. I think everybody felt it was a really serious responsibility and really wanted to get justice for the people involved. But the more I experienced this case, the more I came to realize that it wasn't going to be possible to get justice for everybody, because everybody in this case had had a horrible experience, victims and defendants. They were all really disadvantaged. They had gone into it with problems. They came out of it with problems. And it really made me think about the way we weigh up people's evidence according to how they come over in court. Some people were really, really good at giving evidence. They were really articulate. They were really pleasant. Some people just looked really shifty and looked like they were lying, even though there was no evidence that they were. And
Yeah.
I came away from it very uncomfortable with the way the justice system treats people, both victims and defendants.
Yeah.
And it made me think, if I feel this way as someone who I was only there for 2 weeks on sitting on a jury listening to the case, I had no, I wasn't affected by the outcome of this at all. Whereas the people involved have been living this for 2 years in some cases. How much more difficult must it be to be involved in a much more intimate way as a victim of crime or as a witness or as a defendant? And I started to think about the responsibility that I felt as a juror not to get things wrong. And to think, if I had been giving evidence as a witness, I think I would have felt an even greater burden of responsibility. And so I started to think about, I guess because I'm a crime writer, I always take everything to the kind of the biggest extreme I can think of. And so for me, the greatest extreme that I could think of was giving evidence in a case where someone was convicted of murder and sentenced probably to die in prison, and then to realize that you had got that wrong. And I think that would be an absolute nightmare for me. And so that's what I did to poor Hannah in the It Girl.
Yes, I can sense it from like Hannah. She's trying to get, like, probably she always had that gut feeling, like you said, like if it's like, if no, like, but then she's trying to convince herself, and we're also trying to convince her, like, no, it's all in the past. But in her gut feeling, intuition, like, what if the question is always there? So that brings me to the questions of like, when all the characters here as very strong personalities, um how do you process building those characters in itself, because they are quite complex as human beings? Not everyone is perfect, because everyone has their own flaws. That's what made them humans. So how did your process, like, when you built them?
Well, I love writing locked room thrillers where you have a very small cast of characters. And one of the reasons for that is because it makes it very easy to go very in depth into characters. If you only have a very small number of people, you can really get to know each character very well. You can delve into their backstory, find out who they are, what makes them tick. The It Girl isn't a locked room thriller in that sense. It sort of is in a different sense in terms of the actual murder, but in terms of the possible cast of suspects and the people involved, actually there's a whole university college who could be involved. But the number of people that we get to know is April's friendship group, which is very small. It's just 6 people. And so I was able to do something similar to really get to know them. And I I wanted two things. I wanted you to be a little bit suspicious of everybody because I'm a
Yes.
crime writer and I like lots of red herrings and lots of kind of theories for the reader. I want everybody to suspect everybody. But
Yeah.
I also wanted you to feel really sympathetic towards these people and to see that what happened with April has destroyed all of them in slightly different ways. So they've all been really affected by this. Hannah never completed her degree. She left university halfway through, and sort of fled Oxford, really,
Yes.
to Edinburgh, which is as
With
far away as she can
as
get without going to a different country.
I mean, Scotland is pretty far.
Yeah, Scotland is as far as you can go from Oxford without sort of falling into the sea. Ryan has, who's this in the past strands of the narrative, is this kind of really athletic, fit, kind of footballing guy. He's had a stroke,
Yeah.
which a lot of people blame on the stress of the trial and what happened. So he's in a wheelchair, he's recovering from his stroke. Hannah's husband, Will, was suspected of April's murder and has had to live with that all his life. So he's
Yeah.
constantly in fear of, the paparazzi turning up at his front door, knocking on his door, pointing the finger of suspicion at him. And then there's Emily, who's now an academic, and she, in some ways, she's kind of walled herself off from the rest of the group. She's sort of been unable to deal with what happened, so she's their friend. She's kind of lost her friendship with the rest of the group. And in some ways, Hugh, who is a doctor and Will's best friend, he's the person who's sort of come out of it best. He's gone on to make a very successful career. But even he's been quite affected by what happened. He's sort of had to build this shell around himself to cope with what happened to their friendship group. So I wanted you to, I didn't want any of them to be perfect because they're not. Nobody in real life is
No.
perfect. And I'm not very interested in writing about perfect people. I
think
most
that's why we say like it's the more, because whenever like people saying like, oh, the character should be like this and that, but they're people though. That's what made them like believable because they're not perfect. They're the same as us. They've made
exactly,
mistakes.
yeah.
They had
And
doubts. They had regrets.
people do make mistakes and they have
Yeah.
doubts and they do stupid things. We all do as human
Mm.
beings. And for me, it wouldn't be very interesting to only write about people who make great decisions and always, if you want to watch that kind of thing, there's plenty of Hollywood movies out there where the hero is, takes 6 bullets to the shoulder, knows everything, is an expert in how to defuse bombs or whatever it is. I don't write those kind of books. Those films are out there if that's what you want, but it's not what I'm interested in. So yeah, I'm
Yes.
interested in writing about flawed, difficult people. And I think everybody in the It Girl is that.
Yes, definitely. Well, you're very well known for for us thriller and mystery readers. Do you experience any challenges creating the plot points, especially on this book? Because like there's the time jump on every chapter. It may feel like even though like you're going backwards like every second chapters, but technically you're still progressing on what you're discovering about the story itself, which is done quite good. So
It's
did you?
quite a complicated structure, the It Girl. It's told
Yes.
in 2 different timelines before and after. And I always knew I wanted to structure it like that. The first 2 chapters I wrote were a after chapter and a before chapter. And I think I wanted it to be a really clear split because I have written other books with 2 timelines where the times kind of blended into each other more and you sort of have a bit of memory in the present strand and then a bit of... I knew I wanted this to be a really clear split to kind of symbolize what a seismic event this has been for Hannah and how she
Yeah.
defines her life by the before April's murder and after April's murder, and they're 2 completely different worlds with 2 completely different people.
Yeah.
But that did
Yeah.
make it quite a complicated book to structure because, as you say, there's sort of a plot that's unfolding in the present and a plot that's unfolding in the past. And they sort of have to match each other, but at the same time, they're completely different events happening in each. So I don't typically plot very much before I start writing a book. I usually know where I know a lot about where I'm starting. I had imagined quite a lot about Pelham College, which is the college in the book. I'd imagined a lot about Hannah's life in the present day and a lot about the characters. And I knew who did the killing and why and how. And there's a kind of twist which I can't talk about because it's a
Yeah.
big spoiler. But I knew that. Everything else was sort of up for figuring out as I went along. So that was quite fun, but I did some of my books I do write myself into a bit of a corner where I get to a point where my main character has to solve the mystery and the murder is so watertight that they kind of can't. So I almost had that with the It Girl. There was a point that I got to where I was like, oh God, how is Hannah going to find out the truth? This is really awkward.
What
I
have
figured
I
it
put
out.
her
You'll have to read
through?
it.
It's like, yeah, that's probably like the major take for me for this, especially with the plot points of how it's done before and after, which is quite unique on itself. Um, you've spoken about before, touch on the subject of how Hannah has to live over a decade and still haunted by her traumatic past. Like, no matter how much she wanted to move on, or everyone wants her to move on, it still gonna kept up on her. So why did you choose this as the theme for the It Girl?
I suppose a big part of it was that I had been listening to a lot of true crime podcasts, particularly over lockdown. My kids were off school, so I couldn't really work. I was helping them homeschool. And I found I couldn't really read for some reason. I think my brain was just too full. But I could listen to podcasts, and so that was what I did. I had podcasts in one ear on my earpiece, and with the other ear, I was listening to my kids and helping their maths or whatever. Um, and I love true crime podcasts. I listen to a lot of them. Some of them are really amazing. But I did find myself getting quite uncomfortable at some of the more exploitative ones. And that, some of them you're listening to these podcasts, and it's people either investigating live cases which have not been solved and going around talking to the families of the victims, sometimes in a really responsible, sensible way, sometimes in a way that felt to me quite exploitative. And
Mm.
sometimes it's sort of murder as entertainment, it's people drinking cocktails and kind of discussing dismemberment and sort of laughing about it. And you think, how would I feel if this was a case that I'd been involved in and these people are sort of discussing it as 10 most disgusting crimes ever to be committed in America, or it just
Yeah.
felt really uncomfortable to me. So I became quite kind of concerned with sort of that specific aspect of reporting on crimes. And then I can't remember if this was before I wrote the book or after, but there was this Idaho murders case in America where I think 4 or 5 students were killed in the middle of the night in their dorm room.
Oh,
And
yes, I think I
yeah,
remember that one, like
it
roughly.
was really shocking case, and it wasn't solved for what felt like quite a long time. And when it was eventually solved, the police were completely confident they had the right person. I believe he's since been convicted, but the internet sort of wasn't satisfied, and they wanted a more twisty, complicated, um, what felt narratively a more satisfying outcome. And so a
Yeah.
lot of them simply didn't believe it and just discounted the police's case and carried on investigating. And the people that they were pointing the finger at were the relatives and the friends and the partners of the dead students. And I felt so angry about that. to imagine losing your daughter or losing your boyfriend or girlfriend, and then to have internet sleuths turning up at your house and saying, where were you? You know, explained it. You know, they were literally knocking on the door of these people who had
Yeah.
just been relieved.
Like
I
they
just,
haven't even properly mourned. Like
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. And now they're having, like, you know, mobile phone cameras pointed in their face. Can you talk to us about this? No, why should they? And understandably, they would
Mhm.
say, I'm not going to discuss this. And then it'll be like, well, obviously they've got something to hide because they wouldn't give me an
Yeah.
interview. Just think, and so I really felt for that part of it, and I guess I gave Hannah some of my reactions in that she is someone who, she has been trying to get away from this, trying to get closure on this for 10 years, and she can't because the press are still phoning her up every time John Neville makes, that's the guy who's convicted, his name is John Neville, every time he makes an appeal they ring her up for comment. You know, internet sleuths turn up every time there's a viral podcast about the case. People
Yeah.
phone up her husband and say, you know, that they suspect him, that they always knew it was him, that, you know, so that I guess was just me kind of writing about my discomfort about how some of the more kind of viral investigations into these things go, and yeah, trying to imagine what it must be like to be someone at the center of a case like that and to never be allowed to move on because the internet and the press won't let you.
Yeah, it's just the we call it like the internet mob. Like when they start hounding you. It's we sadly we've seen it too often, and it's gonna be more often with all these crime podcasts. Like everyone's into like this, and then they try. It is quite a sad reality, which hopefully with reading it go, we've been given Hannah's perspective of being on the other side that's being haunted. So it is quite an eye opener itself. So people should be more mindful. Like that's what I think we can take on it from Hannah's experience with it. Because that's also the thing that I say, like keep on like how like she's keep like burying it in the past. Like she just don't want to think about it. So it's just keep on pushing and pushing. I think that's probably what happened to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So I want to touch on, because you said it yourself that you picked two places, Edinburgh and Oxford. I'm same as you, personal opinion that I do love that you chose Oxford, because a lot of my favorite books are based in Oxford too, because it's just the perfect academic, like anything that's happening in college, especially somewhere in England. So maybe I'm a bit biased by this. So like you said it, is there anything else why you chose Oxford University in itself, especially like Pelham College?
um Well, I mean, a big part of it was, as you say, because it is such an iconic background. And I knew that it was somewhere that people who weren't in the UK would have quite a clear imaginative picture of. I think if I'd set it in a less well-known university, I would have had to have spent a lot more time kind of trying to explain what it is like going to university in the UK, which is not the same as in America at all. The systems are very different. But I sort of felt like by using a really well-known place, I could kind of cut to the chase a little bit and spend a
Yeah.
bit more time on some of the kind of more fun, quirky stuff about going to university in a place like Oxford. The other aspect of it was that Oxford has dozens of colleges. Most universities in the UK don't, they're just one institution. And it meant that I could create a fictional college within Oxford, which enabled me to do all sorts of things to have the college slightly badly run without getting sued by Oxford because it was sort of very clearly a fictional place. Whereas I think
Yeah.
I might have felt a little bit more nervous if I'd been setting it at a real university
University.
institution that really existed. Um, but the difficulty of it was that I didn't go to Oxford. I went to Manchester University, which is a very different university experience. It's huge, it's very big. It's an amazing place to go to university. Their English syllabus was incredible and in some ways much more advanced than Oxford's syllabus was at the time. It's become I think Oxford has caught up in some ways, but Manchester was very ahead of its time in terms of, decolonizing the curriculum, recognizing that it's not all, Shakespeare and Chaucer, but you can study authors from all over the world. They had feminist uh units, and basically anything that you wanted. It felt like a more exciting place to study to me. But a lot of my friends did go to Oxford, and I knew enough about it to be able to write a bit about it. But yeah, it did feel like a real jump to write about somewhere that I had never attended. And I was very worried about getting bits wrong. I had to, phone up my friends and say, "Can you talk to me about this? And how would this have worked?" Because there's so much that you just don't know unless you were actually there. So yeah, it was fun, but also nerve-wracking. And the other problem was, because I was writing it in lockdown, I couldn't actually
Yeah.
go to Oxford and check a lot of the stuff. So right at the
Yeah.
end of the book, a friend of a friend who works at University College, Oxford, um, invited me to come and do a tour, and I was able to ask
Ooh.
him a lot of the questions that I needed to know about the book. But of course, the whole time I was quite nervous because I'd already finished the book. So I was like, please don't say anything that makes me have to rewrite this. So it was
It's
all
like my
okay.
agent's gonna kill me for this.
Don't
Yes,
make me.
because Oxford is such, like I said, it's very iconic, and because bro, like you said, Manchester University and at Oxford is quite different syllabus in itself because of the tradition. Oxford is very well known for that strict, like I think to this day, because I know that they have the exams outfit that they still have to use during exams, so they always have that strict tradition, and it's always that's I think that's why they bring in like students like April, for instance, like from well-known families itself. So that's
Well,
why I
actually,
think
yeah, it's interesting you say that. And that was another reason why I wanted to set it at Oxford, because so much of the theme of the It Girl is about how people are treated differently according to their background,
yes,
and the sort of gulf between the kind of the privilege, access to, not just the justice system, but to, to everything really, versus the kind of how ordinary people are treated. And Oxford felt like a really interesting place to explore that, because the gulf between students in some ways is much bigger than at other universities. You do get people who are incredibly wealthy from
yeah,
incredibly privileged
like
backgrounds.
generational wealth is, and then like
Exactly.
even though you can't be hang around with them, but the classes, it's still like you can feel the economic class difference in itself.
Exactly. Yeah, you're in the same room as someone who's like a countess, and you are
Yeah.
from a really ordinary state school in Surrey, which is Hannah's character. She's just from a
Mm.
really regular working background, and April is from a background which is like super wealthy. Her dad is like ultra wealthy. So that felt like an interesting way to explore one of the themes of the book. Yeah.
Mm. So we're gonna talk about the twist that you put, because again, it is quite I'd say it's quite a good twist. I want to ask you, especially as readers, it usually needs, like, it always needs time to build at the start. But when you write them, you always have to incorporate from the start. But it has to be unassuming enough for readers. And then you try to put red herrings everywhere, so everyone's a suspect. You wouldn't know who's who, or who's gonna do it, and what's going on. So it always keeps us like guessing and like on the edge of our seats. Do you have a special way, like for either for you as an author, to plan those twists, like to incorporate it, or just a sprinkle all over the book?
I wish I had a system. I don't. I just kind of play it by ear every time. So usually when I start writing the book, I know the kind of the big reveal, like the solution to who did it and how. Um, and obviously I don't want readers to guess that, but at the same time, it's really important to me that when the reader finds out the solution, that they don't feel cheated. So
Yeah.
I always want to give people the opportunity to guess the solution, which means I have to give clues and drop, little breadcrumbs of information. My ideal reaction for the reader when they do find out the solution is, of course, it had to be that. How could I have been so silly not to notice it? It does mean that sometimes people do get to the solution before I wanted them to, but that's okay. Crime readers are very intelligent. They read a lot of crime novels, so they become very good at noticing when you're trying to trick them and pull the wool over their eyes. So I've made my peace with the fact that some people will guess the solution before I get to it. But I think part of what I try to do is never, well, two things really. One, never to have the big twist be the only twist. I like to have lots of little pieces of information, lots of questions that the reader wants to know the answer to, and to drop those answers throughout the book. So hopefully, even if you guess one part of the puzzle, there'll be other parts that you didn't guess. But the other thing, which I think is the most important thing, we live in an age of social media, of Goodreads reviews, of people live tweeting, reading a book. And that does mean that there are spoilers out there, and sometimes you will encounter them. So a book that rests completely on the twist or on the reveal is very, very vulnerable to being
Yes.
spoiled accidentally. And I think the solution to that is to accept that that is going to happen and to try to make you care so much about the characters that you want to read the book anyway. And I hope, I don't know if I succeed, but what I try to do is write in a way that even if you know the solution, you still care about the characters enough to want to know whether they're going to be okay at the end of it.
Nicely put together. So this is a final question from me. As an author, what would you like to say to the readers to take from reading The It Girl?
Oh, what a good question. I guess I try not to tell people what to take from my books. Partly because I'm sort of resistant to the idea that my books have like a moral or a message.
I think
I
it's more like
don't,
open for interpretation, like you can type it
yeah,
like Anna's
exactly. I,
experience.
I think I'm trying to say the world is complicated, and I think to sort of reduce what I'm trying to say to one thing doesn't kind of admit that. But I think what I love about writing books, particularly, you get this to an extent with film and television, but books, I think, particularly, is the fact that it is a two-way relationship between you and the reader. And crime is triple that, because the game in crime is whether the reader will guess the solution before the writer reveals it. And so as a writer, you're constantly thinking about your reader. You're constantly trying to figure out, what do they know? What do they suspect? What do they want to happen versus what's actually going to happen? Um, and I love the fact that readers bring so much of themselves to my books. And I know that because I get, fan art or people writing to me about my characters. And often they are completely different to the way I imagined them. Sometimes they're completely different to the way they're described in the book. But it doesn't matter, because to me, it just shows how much of the book comes from the reader and the reader's own experiences and their fears and their hopes and their dreams and their expectations.
Mhm.
And so I guess I'm not so much interested in what the reader should take from the book, but what they should bring to it, and the fact that what I put in and what they put in hopefully creates something really beautiful.
Oh, that's actually quite nice. Yeah. It's always that relationship with the author itself, or just the creation of the book itself. So, at this point, I have printed out some questions from, hopefully they're in the audience right now, that we've gathered from the Google form. from them.
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
it's actually quite nice question too, as I was like translating them. The first one is from Putri Priya M. So she said, from the 5 novels that have been translated by Nora and Bentang Pusaka Publishing, which were One by One, Woman in the Cabin 10, The Turn of the Key, The It Girl, and In the Dark Dark Wood, which one did you feel was the most challenging and took the longest time to write?
Oh, gosh, that is a good question. I think The Woman in Cabin 10 was probably the most difficult one to write. I don't know if it took the longest. I'm trying to think. Maybe The Turn of the Key took the longest to write. But The Woman in Cabin 10 was the most difficult to write because it was my second book. And I had written In a Dark, Dark Wood, which was my first book,
Yeah,
completely without expectation. I was just writing it for fun. I hoped it would get published, but I didn't know for sure. I certainly didn't know if it was going to be successful. And then the book was much more successful than certainly I had ever expected, and I think maybe more successful than my publishers had expected. And all this incredible news was coming in about In a Dark, Dark Wood, and it was getting film options and quotes from people like Reese Witherspoon and bestseller lists and all of this incredible stuff, which should have made me feel amazing and did. But it made me feel so much worse about the book that I was trying to write at the time, which was The Woman in Cabin 10. And the more successful In a Dark, Dark Wood was, the worse I felt about this poor little ugly duckling on my computer. So that book was really difficult to write. I hated writing every word of it, and it was like squeezing blood out of a stone. But it turned out to be one of my most popular books. So it just goes to show there is no relationship between how difficult a book is to write and how fun it is to read. So
So yeah, so that's a challenge in itself because like usually it's like, oh, I just can't figure out like how to bring it. No, it's just more now it's just the pressure of the
yeah,
first success of the book of the debut book that's making me like more stressful on the second one, which is quite interesting actually. So
I
yeah,
think
well
it's
done.
probably a lose-lose situation because if book one does terribly, then of course you feel bad about that instead. So it's kind of there's no ideal scenario, but yeah.
Okay, second question from Mutiara. Have you noticed any difference between the readers in Indonesia and others? Could be the preferences, could be the vibes. Like, have you noticed any of that from, especially like probably your agents told you or something?
It's a good question. I don't know if I have. I will say I don't know if I should say which nationality it is. It's not
Oh, you don't
Indonesian.
need to.
There are certain nationalities who are very blunt with their feedback and will at me in really quite mean reviews on Instagram. I don't know if it's because they think I can't understand them, but Instagram instantly translates them. So
Yes.
you get
I
the
think
information whether you want it or not. It's not
I think I
Indonesian.
know. No, I think I know which one. Because I'm also
So
in like
I will say
Instagram too.
Indonesian readers are generally delightful and much politer than some other nationalities. Indonesian readers always seem to make really nice comments on my posts. So yeah, I think Indonesian readers are lovely.
Yes, because I'm also in the Bookstagram community. I know which one you're talking about.
There's
Because
a
yeah,
there's
it's
a
like
couple of countries where I don't know whether it's just a national characteristic to be brutally honest, but yeah, whenever I see it pop up on Instagram, I was like, oh,
we're just taken aback, right? It's like, oh.
yeah.
So the third one is from Audrey C. So she's already written in English, so I'm just gonna read it verbatim from what she said, because it is quite good what she said. It's like, hello, Ruth Ware. I really like your works and have read almost all of your novels, which have been translated into Indonesian. I hope your other books follow soon. Actually, I have several questions, but I'll just ask this one. When creating a character's personality and physique, are you inspired by actors or people close to you? Because for me, when reading novels, I I often imagine actors or public figures I know as the characters. Did that happen to you as the author too? Thank you.
Oh, good question.
Mm.
I don't use actors, partly because I'm not very good at remembering people's faces and who actors are. So I never recognize actors from one film to another. And I often don't have a super clear idea of how my characters look in my head, particularly the main character. I often know the secondary characters. But I think because you're usually seeing out of the eyes of my main character, I don't know about you, but I don't spend a ton of time thinking about what I look like, apart from when I look in the mirror and sort of think, oh God, my hair is not right today. In general, I spend more time looking at other people and thinking about them. So my characters spend a lot of time describing the world around them, but not necessarily much time thinking about themselves. But I am very inspired, actually, not so much by my friends, but more by strangers. I love people watching, and I'll go to restaurants by myself or to cafes by myself and just
Yes.
watch the world around me. And you'll hear such interesting snippets of conversation, and there'll be like that couple having a massive argument and acting really well. So I take little bits of this, little bits of that, stuff that I've read about in the newspapers. Sometimes friends, I'll take like little bits of, their quirky personalities or something. I would never put a real person into a book entirely. And I kind of stitch it all together. But I think the part of it that makes the character come alive is the part of myself that I put in there. And all my characters, even the villains, even the horrible ones, have some aspect of me in them. So I think, yeah, that's the kind of the spark of life.
Yes, it's always like I always find authors in some way they always imbue parts of themselves into all of their characters, which is I always find interesting too, because when I get to talk with the author and then you can kind of see which side is like, oh, maybe this, you sort of guess, but it is quite interesting. But yeah, these are very good questions when I read about them. It's like so hopefully Putri, Mutiara, and Audrey quite happy with the answers. I think we have some 5 minutes. If anyone would like to pop in more questions in the chat, and I think Namkan can help me to select some questions. Or if anyone would like to actually ask
Okay.
to Ruth Ware.
Anyone brave enough to come on camera and ask a question?
Yes, I'll
I can
I'll
see
be
a
happy
few
to
popping up in the chat.
I can help with translation too. So if you're not confident in that, it's okay. We're all here, don't worry.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just scrolling down through. I can only read the questions in English, but if there's any in Indonesian that you think I should look at, by all means translate. But Alex said, this is a really good question, actually. I heard that some thriller writers need time off to heal themselves between writing plots, because the kind of characters affect them emotionally. That is something I actually don't find, strangely. I find writing my books is often very cathartic and often very healing. I think it helps that I don't tend to write about very dark subjects. So I do have friends who've written about things like child sexual abuse or domestic abuse, and they've done really difficult research into that. And they did need a break after that because it sort of took them into a very dark world. I tend to write about things that are already worrying me, things that I've read in the newspapers, or as with the It Girl, something that I had been through with serving on a jury. And then I sort of take it to the worst possible extreme in the book and then resolve it. And so that I actually find usually very comforting. It's sort of like I've worked through my worst fears and figured out how to deal with them. So I usually come out of my books in a better place than when I started. I think of my books as kind of like free therapy. So personally, I don't take time off in between, but there sometimes if I've written a particularly difficult scene, I will need to sort of decompress, take a break, have a couple of days off, and then go back to the book. There's a question underneath from says, well, so there's two questions actually. One's from Amelia and one's from Eunice. Eunice asks about non-thriller books that I read, and Amelia's asked about who's my favorite mystery or thriller writer aside from me. I couldn't say me. I couldn't say that I am my own favorite. So I do read a lot of non-thriller books, mainly because when I am starting a new book, I find it really difficult to read similar things in the genre. I guess partly because the voices can get confused in my head. I'm trying to find the characters and the voices that of my characters, and listening to somebody else's that are too close can be very confusing. So when I'm starting a new book, I tend to read a lot of non-fiction. I'm reading at the moment a book called Character Limit about Elon Musk taking over Twitter, which is completely fascinating. It's got so much information about the inner workings of big companies and what it's like to be a billionaire. So yeah, it's non-fiction, but it reads like a thriller. And in terms of my favorite thriller writers, the ones that I get direct inspiration from tend to be more kind of classic sort of thrillers, things like Agatha Christie,
Yes.
Daphne du Maurier,
Oh,
Dorothy L. Sayers in the case of The It Girl, because she wrote a book set in Oxford, which I was thinking about a lot when I wrote it. But in terms of contemporary writers, I love people like Erin Kelly, Riley Sager, Claire McIntosh, Jane Casey, Shari LaPena. There's just so many amazing thriller writers out there at the moment.
Yes. It is amazing. And a lot of them women too.
Yeah, there really
I
are.
was
Women are having a bit of a moment, which is great.
yes, yes, and I was just like, it's not just in thriller and mystery genre. I noticed like it's more on the like on fiction books. There's a lot more women authors too, which I'm quite happy, and all different backgrounds, which is also quite nice because you've got all these fresh takes on everyone.
Yeah,
So we
no,
have more options.
absolutely. Yeah, it's really
That was
different. It's interesting seeing all the different kind of perspectives and views on the world. Somewhat Puspa, is that, am I saying it right? Has said, do I have any advice for writers who want to start writing thrillers? Um, I would say, well, two things really. Maybe three. So the first thing I would say is just read a lot. It's really difficult to write well in a genre that you don't read. So I would read as many thrillers as you can and then put all of those to one side, stop reading and start trying to write. And so that would be my number two bit of advice is just write. I think sometimes people get really scared of the idea that what they're writing has to be perfect. And so they get a bit of kind of stage fright.
Mhm.
So I would say give yourself permission to make mistakes. Tell yourself that this book is just for you, that nobody else has to see it. Write a draft that's just for you, and then at the end, edit it into something that you are prepared to let other people see. And my third bit of advice would be to have an ending in mind before you start writing. So have some idea of how the book will finish. And this gives you something to aim for, something to point towards. And that's a great help while if you haven't sort of plotted the whole thing out fully, just having a direction to travel in helps keep you on track, I think.
Oh, can I ask this one? Because when you said planning on the get towards the end and stuff, do you like how is your process? Do you have like a whiteboard or do you make charts on the computer? Like I like, or you scribbles on notes? Like I like this is intriguing. I completely forgot about this one. Like how do
I
you
wish
write that one?
Yeah, I wish I did have a big whiteboard. I do have friends who do. They plan it all out and they have post-it
Yeah.
notes and
Yes.
maybe Excel spreadsheet. And this always feels to me like a really grown-up, impressive way to plot a novel. But I don't work like that. I keep everything in my head pretty much. I don't write anything down. I think a lot about the characters before I start, so I have a really good idea of who everybody is, what makes them tick, what kind of people they are. And that was certainly true with the It Girl. I knew that I wanted Hannah's present day life to be in Edinburgh and her past life to be in Oxford. And I had an idea of her kind of core friendship group that she and April have together. I knew who April was, I knew who Will was, I knew who all the core main characters were. And I knew the outcome. I knew who killed April and why. And I knew a bit about how Hannah was going to figure it out. I sort of had to work that out as I went along. Everything in between, I had to find out as I wrote it. So I hadn't planned any of it. I hadn't figured out the back and forth structure. I knew I wanted to have it as before and after, but I just made that up as I went along. I would write a bit of before and then I'd feel like, oh, okay, I think we need a bit of Hannah in the present day now. And then I get a bit bored with that and be like, let's go back to Oxford. So yeah, so I sort of think of it a bit like going on a car journey, in that you know where you start, you know where you're trying to get to, and you maybe know a couple of the places that you'll see along the way, like you know what signposts to take, but actually what happens on the journey, the people that you see, the crazy accident on the motorway, all of that is just happens as you're traveling.
I think that's also good advice for like all aspiring authors, like Puspa. So just think of the clear point, and then you'll see how you want, like how it's gonna be, and then everything you're gonna figure out and soon.
Well,
And that's
I
why
have to say it works for me, but I do have a lot of writer friends who work completely differently. So Claire McIntosh writes, she plans everything, every scene. She pretty much knows exactly how the book is going to be before she starts writing. And then Lisa Jewell knows nothing. So she just comes up with an idea and starts writing. She doesn't know how it's going to turn out. She doesn't know the ending. So I wouldn't necessarily say my way is the correct way, but it works for me. So I think
everyone's
anybody who's an aspiring writer has to just try different methods and figure out what works for them. And maybe it will be something completely different.
something that's personalized to you, I'd say.
Exactly. Yeah.
I think we're 5 minutes before our time's up. I think Yuli, would you like to say anything? Or Nathan?
Maybe we have time for one more question before we say goodbye, do you think?
Yes, of course, one more question. It's fine.
Okay. I'll scroll up and pick a question. Okay. Oh, I like this one. Okay, so this is from Niputu Ayu Santika Dewi. I hope I didn't mispronounce that too badly. So she says, I have a question. Do you have any tips for making readers feel what you want to write in your writing, like tension or fear, especially mystery and thriller novels that play on readers' fear and curiosity? Yeah, this is a really good question, and it comes back to the comment I was making earlier about crime writing in particular being a kind of dance between the reader and the writer. As a writer, you have to always be thinking about what your reader is thinking and feeling, and try to put them in the state of mind that you want them to be. It's really difficult, and I don't think there is an answer. I think a big part of it is giving them enough questions to keep them anxious and curious. So I try always. In crime, we're very lucky because we have one big question which powers the plot, which is who done it, who killed this
Who done
person.
it?
But you can't just have one question. You need to have lots of small ones. So I try to drop in lots of little questions and answers throughout the plot. A big part of it is atmosphere. I spend a long time thinking about my settings, describing it, trying to really make the reader feel the chill of a cold night or the thirst of a hot day. Really describe how your character is thinking and feeling, and hopefully your reader will feel that too. But I think there's no substitute for just if you care about your character, if you've managed to convey them vividly, hopefully your reader will care about them too. Because the problem is nobody cares what happens to a paper cutout. You care about what happens to real people. And so the realer you can make your character, the more convincingly you can evoke them, the more your reader will care and fear for your character. So yeah, so that's just about your character being as real to you as possible and hopefully to your reader.
It's like when the readers start investing in the characters themselves. That's when it start gripping on them. Yes.
Yeah. This has been so fun. This has been such a good discussion.
There was a very like good questions that's been given too. And
I know.
everyone's
I feel like the reader questions were excellent. I mean, your questions are amazing too, Annie, but the reader questions have been so diverse and so interesting. It's been, yeah, really fantastic.
And yes, and most of them also like, oh, I've read this, I've read this book, and I've been loving Professor. So as you can see, like Nora's readers and Indonesian readers will absolutely love you.
Oh, well, I
They
feel
would
very
have,
lucky to have such lovely publisher and such lovely readers as well. So thank you.
it's like yes, and we're obviously you mentioned before there was something upcoming next year, something to do
Yes.
with the. You can drop
Yeah.
that; they'll probably be happy.
Yeah, so my big news for 2026, people who follow me on Instagram might have already seen this, but The Woman in Cabin 10 is coming out on Netflix next year, which is very exciting, with Keira Knightley in the role of Lo. That's actually very difficult to say.
Is it Rob
Yeah,
Lowe?
so I don't I don't have a confirmed release date yet, but hopefully towards the end of 2026. So
I love Keira Knightley.
yeah, me too. She's my heroine.
Yes, so everyone's got the tea. They know everything what's coming up. So we're just gonna hold off and be patient until then. That was actually a good way, good surprise.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I can't wait to see it. So yeah, it'd be amazing to see characters that once existed only in my head appear in real life.
So, anything you would like to say for the audience before we wrap this up? Any last words before
Just
we
thank
see you
you
for another
so
year?
much. Yeah, thank you so much for coming, everybody in the audience. Thank you, Annie, for staying up in the middle of the night because I know it's like 1 a.m. for you. You need to go to bed. So thank you for the excellent questions. And thank you to Nora for organizing all of this. And happy Halloween to everybody.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Thanks so much, guys. Have a lovely day.
Can we have a picture together, maybe, before?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
For those who will have a picture together, maybe you can just turn on the video, please, maybe. So we will have, I think there's like 46 participants today. Okay.
I love seeing everybody's faces popping up.
Yeah.
Who will be the screen cap the picture? Maybe from ours, yeah. Okay, we are ready. Okay, so for those who already have the book, please show the book to the
Oh, I
camera.
love that. I can see you holding up the books. That's very cool.
Okay, we are ready. Wait. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Another one. 1, 2, 3. We heard the voice of the screen. Okay. I think there's another one. 3 slides. Okay. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Wow. Sorry.
So many. Okay. Done. Thank you for tonight.
Oh, thank you for
Once
everything,
more.
everybody.
Happy
It's been
Halloween.
such fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy Halloween, everybody. Happy reading.
See you again next year, Ruth.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Terima kasih. Naja, nanti yang pemenangnya akan kami umumkan via Instagram ya?
Sudah tadi di kolom chat udah Kak. Nanti
Udah
di
di kolom chat ya?
tadi di chat udah, terus nanti di
Oh, iya.
jawab di DM ya sama Nolapop.
Oke, baik. Terima kasih ya teman-teman semua. Sampai bertemu lagi di acara-acara Nurul yang lain. Selamat malam. Terima kasih juga Ani. Jangan ini ya, jangan kapok buat ikutan. Terima
Enggak
kasih
kok.
sekali lagi. Yo,
Oh,
bye-bye.
Terima kasih. Dadah semua.